First time I saw someone get stabbed in prison, it wasn't over drugs, wasn't over money, it was over disrespect and gang politics. I think people got a misconception, like from the media, about what prison gangs, what they actually are. I think people don't realize that the politics in prison, in comparison to jail, the politics from the county jail to prison are a lot more different and more major than people realize. Yeah, I'm Dre, aka Mac Dre 1804. Unfortunately, I done spent a good portion of my life in juvie, from juvie to county to state prison. And today I'm gonna break down to you how prison gangs actually work from somebody who's lived and experienced it basically my whole life. In prison, everything is kind of determined by your race and whatever gang you belong to. Even to like the housing unit you get assigned, everything really comes down to that. Like where you get assigned to, everything comes down to what your gang affiliation is or what they got you documented as, what your gang affiliation is. How the prison system identifies gang members, it's an acronym, it's STG. So what that stands for is Security Threat Group. So how they basically identify gang members in the prison system is like once you hit state prison, if you're not already a documented gang member from the streets, once you hit state prison, they got what they call IPS or IPS. We just call them IPS for short, but they basically like the jailhouse detectives. So once you get into the prison system, their job is to basically figure out who you are. If you ain't already a documented gang member, by the time you get to the state prison system, they basically try to figure out who you are. Because once you get sentenced to state prison, you go to classification. And so once you in classification, they monitor who you talk to on the tier, who you associate with. They look at who you sit with at the chow hall. They actually notify you once you become documented. They actually send you, because you know in the prison you get mail. You'll get a letter from the institution basically saying that you've been STG'd, which is basically you've been identified as a gang member. So they'll basically tell you what you're affiliated with or what the institution got you as affiliated with. So whether it be, you know, you a blood or a crip or a GD or whatever the case may be, they'll send you a letter basically notifying what they got you categorized as. And the prison system is basically a security threat group. That's basically, you know, what you would call a prison gang. And so what that determines is where they're gonna house you. Like everything comes down to that. Your housing, like what programs or whatever you qualify for, that'll basically determine how you do your time, is what they identify you as. Yeah, it's different. Like from juvie to the county, the politics isn't really that deep. It don't really get deep until you go to state prison. Like juvie and county, it's like, all right, if you a gang member from the streets, whether you in juvie or the county, it's like you see a rival gang member, it's on sight. So it's not really over complicated. It's like, all right, if you a gang member from the streets, you in a juvie or you in county, you see a rival, you gonna get it popping. You see, it's like, it's just that simple. It's real straightforward. But once you get to state prison, it gets different because now you got alliances and you got the prison politics, you got racial politics, and then you got the whatever's going on in the state prison at the time. You kind of got to fall in line with the politics. So if you got beef from the streets, that shit has to get coordinated through the proper channels. You can't really act on it as you would in the county or in juvie. Like it depends though. If you a member of a neighborhood gang and you enter the prison system and you got no allegiance to no other prison gang, then it's different. It's like the same rules kind of apply as in the county, but you got a whole bunch of gangs that you could have multiple different neighborhood gang members be a part of one prison gang in the state prison system. And so now that kind of politics get a little bit more complicated. And so if you got issues with somebody, you'll have to handle that on a one-to-one basis. And then you'll basically have to live with them on a unit, because if y'all both members of like one gang, you basically got to squash all street beef, and basically you got to coexist on the same housing unit. You basically got to fall in line with the prison politics and whatever the climate is at the time. So it's crazy because there was a situation like that with the GDs. Like, so we had, like in New Bedford, you got two rival neighborhood gangs. You got Monty's Park and then you got United Front, and they really warn with each other on the streets. In the state prison system, a lot of times those guys is GDs. So in the state prison system, they basically got to coexist with each other on a unit, even though they really on the streets murdering each other for real. So it's like they'll get lock-ins, they'll lock in a cell and get a one-on-one, and then after that, you basically gotta live with them the rest of your bid. You feel what I'm saying? So it's like you basically get the street conflict out the way, but until y'all come home, until the end of y'all bid, y'all basically gotta be homies. So it's like the prison politics is just way different. It's just, compared to the county and the juvie, it's just like a completely different world, a completely different dynamic. So with race in prison, see, it's a little bit different because the gang politics and the race politics kind of tie in, but they kind of at the same time. It's like when you get to Walpole shut down now, but when I was in the state prison system, Walpole was still classification. Now they do classification in Sousa where the max is at. But when I entered the prison system, Walpole was still classification. And how the politics worked in Walpole was everything was basically by race instead of gang. So the showers, the phones, so you had a white phone, black phone, and then you had basically the other phone, which is, you know, Asians and, well, now you had a white phone, black phone, and a Spanish phone. And like the Asians and everybody else would fit onto the white phone. So it was basically white, black, Asian phone, and then the same thing for the showers, because there's 3 showers on 3 tiers. So it's white, black, Spanish. Everything in Walpole was kind of was segregated by race instead of gang. You still had gang politics, because the tables in the chow hall was segregated by gang instead of race. So once you, in Walpole, you had a whole bunch of tables in the chow hall, because the chow hall is real big in Walpole. It's like, you can imagine like a high school cafeteria, but it's like it's like damn near a gym. The chow hall in Walpole is huge. You got all the different gang tables, like the Bloods, the Crips, the GDs. You got all the different gang tables, and then you got city tables. You got, you know, Worcester, Boston, Brockton. So you got a whole bunch of different tables in a chow hall, and then you got this tables, they get more specific, because then you got Bloods, Crips, GDs, and even the Vice Lords from Worcester, because they really all come from one city. But the tables in Walpole, the politics was more so broken down by race until you get to the max, because that's when they actually color code you, when they start separating the gangs. They started separating the gangs in the max by housing units. So they house you with whatever gang you affiliated with. So if you were Blood, they gonna house you with whatever set of the Bloods you belong to, they gonna house you with them. Or, and the same thing, vice versa, if you a Crip or you a GD. It's something called, well, I didn't really learn about it until I went to state prison. It's called just prison etiquette. You feel what I'm saying? You really don't learn that in the county as much. It's really how you kind of conduct yourself while you in prison. It's basically the convict code. It's like just basic shit. You give respect, you get respect. You know, you just kind of basically conduct yourself like as a grown man should. That's basically really how you, like the majority of prison etiquette is basically just, you know, giving respect and getting respect. That's really it. Like, you don't get out of line, you don't act like a child, you don't, even with the corrections officers, like in the county, you know, popping off and getting crazy with the COs, that's something that's kind of common in the county, but in the prison system, that's not really tolerated, because it's like, you don't fuck up what niggas got going on, so you don't get disrespectful with the COs either. You don't get crazy, you don't pop off at the mouth at the COs unless you really gonna do something. That's the thing, like, it's more control in the prison system versus the county or even DYS. DYS is just like, it's a free fall. So it's like the county too, so. Every prison gang is a chain of command. You know, different gangs do they shit differently, but you got one, every gang is this is pretty much universal. You got the shot caller, or the motherfucker who's calling the shots, like when motherfuckers gotta get taken out or whenever something gotta get done. The shot callers is basically the ones who's heading the organization. That's usually, 9 times out of 10, it's a lifer who's already been down for that long, like 10, 15 years. And they usually been shot callers already 10 plus years. You feel what I'm saying? They've already been in the prison system for a long time. That's usually like the backbone of the organization. And then after that, you got people who are assigned different roles, whether that be to do paperwork checks, which is like you doing homework on somebody. Basically, you figure out, you know, what they book for, what their charges are, you know, whether they cooperated with law enforcement or whatever the case may be. With us, you got institutional coordinators, that's basically the shot caller. You could you can say more or less. And different units that have different RCs, the different people who are really calling the shots. You know, they do everything as far as like organizing group workouts, making sure everybody's on their toes and doing the shit they supposed to do. You know, they issue violations, so if a motherfucker do something he ain't supposed to, they're the ones who, you know, issue violations. We do something called deuces, which is basically like a huddle up or like a meeting. So deuces will get done in different cells, and it'll be different times of the day or different times of the week. And whenever they call a deuce, you gotta drop whatever you got going on to report to the deuce. So if you on the phone, whatever you doing, you gotta drop whatever you got going on and report to the deuce. Like I said, different prison gangs, it's more or less all the same. They might got different names for what they call, whatever they call their positions or ranks, if you wanna call them that. It all comes down to whoever's calling the shots at the time, but that's the backbone of the organization, is the shot caller or the senior members or the organization. You feel what I'm saying? Or big homies, if you want to, you could call them that. It's like all interchangeable. But messages that get sent through, you know, shit like kites. If senior members in a box, motherfuckers send a kite through the toilet, which is because, you know, in the max, all the toilets are interconnected. So you could send, motherfuckers will be hooked up, and you could send a kite. You could send a kite through the toilet or from another unit. You feel what I'm saying? So kites is really the main way niggas send messages up there, which is either with a laundry line, or that's really like the main way motherfuckers send kites is really with a laundry line. So another way is motherfuckers are just drain out the toilet and shout through the toilet, but the most common way is through a kite. That's the way motherfuckers would get information to another unit. That person may be a rat. When I entered the state prison system, shit was a little bit different from me, because I'd already been doing time since a juvenile. So when I transitioned to Walpole, now the people that I was in Walpole with, I had already been doing time with since juvie. So it wasn't really like a hard transition or like a new experience for me. It was different because I was actually in the state prison system. So that's a world of difference from juvie or the county jail. It's just, it wasn't like completely new to me. And the people that were there, for the most part, every housing unit, I knew somebody who was over there. And as soon as I hit the unit in Walpole, there were already people that I already knew there, either from juvie or from the county. So it wasn't really like a difficult transition, as I feel like it would have been had I not been doing time before. When I hit state prison, I was already kind of affiliated with the GDs. That was who I was really associating with in the state prison. You know, I was really going to chow with them, and mad people I already knew from DY was already there, and they was GDs. And so I was really wrecking with them, and that's who I was really associating with. So before my classification was over, I got the STG paperwork, and they STG'd me a Gangster Disciple. And so that was before I ended up leaving Walpole. By the time I got to the max, I already knew what housing unit I was gonna be doing my time on, because, you know, they separated by side. So that you have the north side and the south side. The south side is GDs, Crips, and, you know, they got a couple Spanish gangs too, like La Familia, MLD, which is Maniac Latin Disciple, Latin Gangster Disciple. You got a couple different gangs on the south side. And the south side is like, I think it's 8 units, H1, it starts with G, it's G1. G1 was kind of like a PC unit though. G1, G2, H1 is orientation. So if you was to go to the south side, you would start on H1. If you was to go to the north side, their orientation was M1. So you got different orientations based on what you're labeled as. Off the rip, you're going 2 different directions. If you hit the max and you're STG'd, if you Crip, GD, or anything in that demographic, you're gonna hit the south side. So you're gonna start on H1, and from H1 you go to K2, which is like the main unit on the south side, which is where I did most of my bid. And Shirley Max, I did most of my bid on K2. That unit's really a GD Crip unit. You know, it's a bunch of different gangs within those gangs, because you got different sets of Crips and different sets of GDs. You got IGDs, LGDs, you got MLDs. Basically, those are the gangs on K2. The majority, the max, everybody's pretty much gang affiliated. The the neutrals or the neutrinos, as we call them, they make up the minority of the prison population. So if you neutral, you're really like a minority, you know what I'm saying? So usually in any compound, you got like the neutrals, they got one phone, one shower, which they all gotta share, and everything else is a gang phone or a gang shower. And it's usually the worst. It's usually the worst shower, the worst phone, the phone that be clicking off and on a lot, the phone that is staticky. That's usually the neutral phone, and they all gotta share that one phone. You feel what I'm saying? So motherfuckers let you know as soon as you hit the unit. If you're neutral, first of all, motherfuckers will run down on you. They'll figure out who you affiliated with. If you say you're neutral, then they'll point out, okay, this is your phone, this is your shower, and basically y'all all share one phone or that one shower. So